The Phantom burst from the Nexus Spire's docking aperture, its phase shift drive engaging the moment they cleared the structure. Reality shimmered around them as Juno pushed the experimental vessel to its limits, evading the first volley of energy weapons from the approaching shadow of ships. 3 vessels, advanced configuration, Juno reported, her augmented eyes cycling rapidly through tactical displays. Their weapons are unlike anything in Alliance databases. Targeting systems are having trouble getting a lock on us. Tristan stood behind her, one hand on the back of her chair for stability as the ship executed a series of evasive maneuvers. Though he maintained physical calm, his mind worked with newfound clarity, processing tactical options at unprecedented speed. They're hurting us, he realized, watching the pursuit pattern develop, trying to drive us toward that spatial distortion at Vector 7. A trap? Juno asked, already adjusting course to avoid the indicated region. A gateway, Nyx corrected, studying the navigational display. The transformation they had undergone in the Nexus Spire had enhanced her natural luminescence, her crystalline features now emitting a subtle glow that shifted with her emotions. They're attempting to force us into a dimensional corridor of their creation, one that would lead us directly to their stronghold. The 2 resonance keys orbited each other above the navigation console, their energies combining to project a detailed map of the region. New information appeared as they watched, hidden pathways, dimensional folds, quantum corridors that connected distant points through higher dimensional space. There, Nyx indicated a seemingly empty region ahead, a natural fold in space-time. If we can reach it before they adjust their formation. Juno needed no further prompting. The Phantom surged forward, its phase shift drive creating a quantum wake that distorted sensor readings. Behind them, the Shadower vessels adjusted course in pursuit, their weapons charging for another volley. They're faster than before, Tristan observed. They've upgraded their technology. The Shadowers have been harvesting architect relics for generations, Nyx explained. What they lack in understanding, they compensate for with brute force application. As if to demonstrate her point, a burst of exotic energy blazed past them, narrowly missing the Phantom's port side. The space where it passed seemed to warp and twist, reality itself disturbed by the weapon's effect. That wasn't designed to destroy us, Leora said, monitoring sensor readings from a secondary station. The energy signature suggests some kind of stasis field. They want to capture us intact. They want the keys, Nyx confirmed. And now, they want us as well. What we've become. She met Tristan's eyes, an entire conversation passing between them without words through their enhanced connection. The transformation they had undergone had altered them at the quantum level, activating potentials that had lain dormant in their respective species. Together, they represented the first step toward what the architects had designed, evolving consciousnesses capable of understanding and utilizing their legacy as intended. Approaching the fold, Juno announced, breaking their silent communion. 30 seconds at current velocity. The tactical display showed the Shadower vessels adjusting formation, attempting to cut off their approach. Energy readings indicated all 3 ships charging weapons simultaneously for a coordinated strike. They'll fire before we reach the fold, Tristan calculated. Standard evasive maneuvers won't be sufficient. The keys pulsed brighter, their orbital dance accelerating. Without consciously deciding to, Tristan and Nyx moved in perfect synchrony, each placing a hand above the keys. The resonance that flowed constantly between them surged, connecting with the architect technology in ways that transcended conventional interface. Through their joined consciousness, they perceived patterns in the quantum fabric surrounding the Phantom, weaknesses, currents, possibilities. With elegant precision born of their enhanced awareness, they guided the keys to project a specific frequency into the ship's phase shift drive. The Phantom shuddered as its drive systems reconfigured, the architect-derived technology responding to the key's influence. Reality around them seemed to fold inward, the ship partially phasing into a dimensional state that the Shadower's weapons couldn't fully target. What did you just do? Juno demanded, her augmented eyes widening as new data flooded her displays. Enhanced your phase shift capabilities, Nyx explained, her voice carrying harmonics that resonated with the ship's systems. We're operating partially out of conventional space-time, between realities. The weapons can't get a clean lock on something that doesn't fully exist in their dimension, Tristan added. The Shadowers fired their coordinated volley, but where the energy fields should have intercepted the Phantom, They instead passed harmlessly through space that appeared to contain the ship, but actually didn't. Not entirely. We exist in a probability state, Nix continued, noting Juno's confusion. Both here and elsewhere simultaneously. Schrodinger's starship, Leora murmured, her scientific mind grasping the concept despite its apparent impossibility. Fascinating in theory, supposedly impossible in practice. The architects specialized in making the impossible practical, Nix replied with a slight smile. The fold loomed ahead, invisible to conventional sensors, but blazingly apparent to their enhanced perception, a natural wrinkle in space-time that connected distant regions through higher dimensional space. The keys projected precise coordinates for their transit, ensuring they would emerge at the specific location needed for the next stage of their journey. Brace for transition, Juno warned, guiding the Phantom toward the invisible threshold. The ship slipped into the fold with a sensation like reality itself breathing out. Colors shifted beyond the viewports, space stretching and compressing in patterns that would have been disorienting if not for their enhanced perception guiding them through the experience. For an extended moment, they existed everywhere and nowhere, the fold connecting not just distant points in space but different potential realities. Through their resonant bond, Tristan and Nix stabilized the transition, ensuring the Phantom maintained its integrity throughout the impossible journey. Then, with a gentle sigh of restored physics, they emerged into normal space. The view screen adjusted to show their new surroundings, a vast nebula of swirling gases illuminated by the light of a dying star. Within the colorful clouds floated structures of unmistakable artificial design, their architecture echoing the principles they had seen in the Archive and the Spire, but on a scale that dwarfed both. The Sanctuary Network, Nix breathed, wonder evident in her voice despite her extensive knowledge of architect lore. The final threshold before the cradle itself. The keys projected new information across the ship's displays, a map of the network, showing how the various structures connected through dimensional pathways similar to the fold they had just traversed. At the network's center, represented by a symbol of extraordinary complexity, waited their ultimate destination. No sign of pursuit, Juno reported after running a thorough sensor sweep. The fold seems to have closed behind us. But they'll find another way, Tristan finished for her. The Shadows have been studying these pathways for generations. They won't be delayed for long. Leora approached from the medical station, scanner in hand. I need to examine you both, she said with the authority of a physician who would not be denied. The energy expenditure during that phase shift enhancement registered on my instruments. Your physiologies are under strain, even with your enhancements. Tristan became aware of a fatigue he had been ignoring, a deep weariness that went beyond physical exhaustion to touch his very consciousness. A glance at Nix confirmed she experienced something similar, the glow of her crystalline features slightly dimmed. The transformation is still stabilizing, Nix admitted. Our connection with the keys requires energy our bodies are still adapting to channel. Then we rest while we can, Tristan decided. Juno, take us deeper into the nebula. The particulate matter should provide additional sensor coverage. As Juno navigated the Phantom into the concealing embrace of the nebula's denser regions, Leora conducted her examination. Her scanner hummed as it recorded data from both of them, her expression cycling from concern to fascination and back again. Your cellular structure continues to evolve, she reported finally. The quantum entanglement between you has deepened, creating what appears to be a shared energy system that crosses the physical boundary between your bodies. Is it harmful? Tristan asked, though he already knew the answer through his connection with Nix. Quite the opposite, Leora replied, shaking her head in amazement. Your bodies are adapting to channel and utilize energies that should, by all conventional medical understanding, be lethal. The transformation you underwent in the Spire fundamentally altered your relationship to physical law. The architects designed their legacy to guide evolution toward new possibilities, Nix said softly. We are becoming what they envisioned, consciousness capable of transcending conventional limitations. Tristan felt the truth of her words resonating through their bond. What they were experiencing wasn't just physical or even mental, it touched something deeper, something that human language lacked precise terms to describe. The closest approximation might be spiritual, though that word carried connotations too limited to encompass the reality. You need nourishment and rest, Leora insisted, putting away her scanner. Both of you. Doctor's orders. Neither argued. The upcoming challenges would demand all their strength, all their focus. As they moved toward the ship's small dining area, Tristan felt Nyx's consciousness brush against his through their resonant bond, a touch more intimate than any physical contact could achieve. "We're changing faster than anticipated," her thought came to him, not in words exactly, but in concepts that his mind translated into language. "Is that concerning?" He returned in the same fashion, still marveling at the ease with which they shared consciousness. "Not concerning," she clarified, "but significant. The architects designed this evolution to occur over generations, not days. The accelerated timeline may present challenges and opportunities they didn't anticipate." As they prepared a simple meal from the ship's supplies, Tristan found himself watching Nyx with new eyes, not just appreciating her alien beauty, but perceiving the harmonic patterns that flowed through her being, patterns that increasingly resonated with his own. "What are we becoming?" he asked aloud, the question too fundamental to be contained in their silent communion. Nyx looked up, her cosmic eyes meeting his across the small table. "Something new," she said simply. "The first of what may be many, if we succeed. And if we fail? Then the shadows will claim the cradle, using its power to force evolution along paths of dominance rather than harmony." Her expression darkened momentarily. The resulting species would be powerful beyond imagining, but twisted, lacking the balance the architects intended. The implications hung between them, weighty with cosmic significance. Yet beneath these vast concerns, Tristan felt something equally powerful but far more personal, the deepening connection between them that transcended duty or even shared purpose. Through their resonant bond, he sensed she felt it too, an emotion that defied simple categorization as affection or even love, though those words approximated aspects of it. What flowed between them was both more primal and more elevated, a recognition of complementary essence that made them, together, something greater than either could be alone. After they had eaten and restored some of their energy, they joined Juno in the cockpit to study the sanctuary network in greater detail. The keys continued their synchronized orbit above the navigation console, projecting information about the various structures visible through the nebula's colorful veil. "Each sanctuary specializes in a different aspect of architect knowledge," Nyx explained, indicating the distinct structures. Together, they contain the sum of their civilization's understandings: scientific, philosophical, spiritual. "And at the center?" Tristan asked, though he already intuited the answer. "The cradle," she confirmed. "The culmination of their legacy, a vessel designed to nurture the next stage of cosmic evolution." Juno's augmented eyes narrowed as she studied the projected path. "The route isn't direct," she observed. "Why navigate through multiple sanctuaries when the cradle is clearly accessible from our current position?" "Because we're not ready," Nyx said simply. "The sanctuaries prepare those who would approach the cradle, each providing necessary understanding, necessary evolution. Like the trials we faced in the Spire," Tristan added, "but on a deeper level." The keys pulsed in affirmation, their projected display highlighting 3 specific sanctuaries that formed a path to the central structure. Each glowed with a distinct energy signature, representing different aspects of the preparation they would need to undergo. The Sanctuary of Mind. Nyx identified the first structure, a spiraling construction of interconnected spheres. The Sanctuary of Form, she continued, indicating a crystalline lattice that seemed to fold in upon itself in impossible geometries. And the Sanctuary of Unity, she finished, her voice softening as she indicated the third structure, a pulsing heart of energy contained within delicate architectural filigree. 3 keys, 3 sanctuaries, Tristan noted. "Where do we find the third key?" Before Nyx could answer, the ship's sensors chimed an alert. Juno's hands flew across the controls, bringing the tactical display to primary focus. "Quantum disturbances at the nebula's edge," she reported, her tone tight. "Similar signature to the fold we used, but larger, much larger." "They found another way in," Tristan said grimly. Nyx moved to study the readings, her transformed physiology allowing her to perceive patterns invisible to conventional sensors. "They're forcing open a dimensional corridor," she confirmed. "Crude but effective and dangerous. Such methods create instabilities in the fabric of space-time." "How many ships?" Tristan asked, automatically shifting into tactical mode. "At least 5 vessels detectable," Juno replied. "Larger than those that pursued us to the Spire. Capital ships, by the energy signature." "They're committing their main fleet," Nyx said, concern evident in her voice and in the dimming luminescence of her features. They believe the cradle is within reach. The tactical situation was clear. They were outnumbered and outgunned by conventional standards. Even with the Phantom's enhanced capabilities, a direct confrontation would be suicidal. We need to reach the first sanctuary before they can organize a comprehensive search pattern, Tristan decided. The nebula will provide cover for now, but once they deploy sensor drones. Setting course for the Sanctuary of Mind, Juno confirmed, her hand steady on the controls despite the gravity of their situation. As the Phantom moved deeper into the nebula toward their destination, Tristan felt Nyx's consciousness reach for his through their resonant bond. The connection between them had become so natural that the boundary between their minds felt increasingly arbitrary, a legacy of physical separation that their transformation was steadily transcending. There's something I haven't told you about the third key. Her thought came to him, tinged with emotions too complex for words. Show me, he invited, opening his consciousness fully to hers. Images flowed between them. The third key, different from the first two, but complementary, completing a trinity of harmonized energies. But unlike the physical artifacts they had recovered, this key existed in a different state, potential rather than actualized, encoded within patterns that required specific conditions to manifest. The third key isn't something we find, he realized as understanding dawned. It's something we become. Nyx's affirmation flowed through their bond, accompanied by a depth of feeling that transcended language. The final stages of their transformation, the ultimate purpose of the resonance between them, was to generate the third key through their unified consciousness. The architects designed a safeguard, she explained. The cradle can only be accessed when all three keys resonate in perfect harmony, a state that requires not just possession of artifacts, but the evolution of consciousness they were meant to catalyze. The Shadowers don't understand this, Tristan intuited. They believe possessing the physical keys alone will grant them access. They understand enough to be dangerous, Nyx cautioned. If they capture us, they'll attempt to force the manifestation of the third key through methods that would destroy us both, and possibly corrupt the very legacy they seek to claim. The stakes became clearer with each passing moment. Not just their survival, or even the fate of their respective species, but the very direction of cosmic evolution hung in the balance of their success or failure. Approaching the Sanctuary of Mind, Juno announced, pulling them back to immediate concerns. Through the view screen, they watched as the nebula's swirling gases parted to reveal the first sanctuary in its full glory. The spiraling spheres rotated in complex patterns around a central axis, each containing what appeared to be different environmental conditions, different states of matter and energy. The structure pulsed with a gentle blue luminescence that reached out toward them like welcoming arms. The keys responded, their orbital dance accelerating as they projected navigational data directly into the ship's systems. A docking aperture appeared in the outermost sphere, adjusting its configuration to accommodate the Phantom's dimensions. The sanctuary recognizes us, Nyx confirmed, her features brightening with anticipation. It awaits. As Juno guided the ship toward the indicated aperture, Tristan felt a new dimension of the resonance between himself and Nyx, a harmonization that extended beyond their individual consciousnesses to include the keys and now the sanctuary itself. All were components in a vast system designed by the architects, each playing a role in the symphony of evolution they had set in motion eons ago. The Phantom slipped into the docking aperture, which sealed behind them with fluid grace. Within, they found not a conventional hangar but a space that seemed alive, responsive to their presence in ways that went beyond mere automation. The air is breathable, Juno reported, checking sensor readings. Temperature and gravity adjusted to match our preferences. It's like the sanctuary is catering to us specifically. It is, Nyx confirmed. The architects designed these spaces to recognize and nurture potential in whatever form it appeared. She turned to Tristan, her cosmic eyes holding his. Are you ready? The question encompassed far more than their immediate entry into the sanctuary. It acknowledged the irreversible nature of the path they walked, each step taking them further from their former selves and closer to what the architects had envisioned. Tristan's answer came without hesitation, flowing through their resonant bond before finding expression in words. Together, he affirmed, the simple word carrying the weight of cosmic destiny. As they prepared to disembark, the keys floated to position themselves between Tristan and Nyx, their energies merging into a single harmonic pattern that encompassed both beings. The resonance between them surged, aligning their consciousness more perfectly than ever before. The sanctuary of mind awaited, the first step in their final preparation to face the cradle and the legacy it contained. Behind them, the shadow or fleet drew ever closer, driven by a vision of dominance that opposed everything the architects had designed. The fate of evolution itself hung in the balance, guided by the resonant bond between a human and a Stellari who had transcended the limitations of their respective species to become something new. Something with the potential to fulfill a destiny written in the very fabric of the cosmos. As the Phantom's airlock cycled open to admit them to the sanctuary, they moved as one being with two bodies, their steps perfectly synchronized, their awareness encompassing each other and the space around them with equal clarity. The keys led the way, pulsing with the joy of purpose fulfilled, of potential on the verge of realization. The sanctuary of mind received them with a surge of welcome that transcended physical sensation, a recognition that resonated through their very beings. Within its spiraling chambers waited knowledge and transformation beyond anything human or Stellari civilization had imagined, preparing them for the ultimate encounter at the heart of the architect's design. The journey that had begun with a wounded alien seeking refuge in a human station now approached its culmination, a convergence of destinies planned across millions of years. Guided by the resonant bond between two beings who had become something greater together than either could have been alone. And through that bond flowed not just cosmic purpose, but something equally powerful, an emotion that transcended species and even consciousness itself, binding them together in a harmony that echoed the very music of creation. Evolution's promise. The journey through the three sanctuaries transformed them in ways neither could have imagined when their paths first crossed on Helios Station. Each sanctuary had tested and expanded different aspects of their evolving consciousness, preparing them for what awaited at the heart of the architect's legacy. The sanctuary of mind had opened their awareness to dimensions of thought beyond conventional comprehension, teaching them to perceive reality as the architects had, not as fixed particles in empty space, but as patterns of probability and potential, connected through a cosmic dance of information and energy. The sanctuary of form had reshaped their physical vessels, completing the transformation begun in the Nexus Spire. Their bodies now existed in a state of quantum flexibility, capable of channeling energies that would destroy conventional matter. Tristan's human form had taken on subtle luminescence similar to Nyx's, while her crystalline features had developed new patterns that resonated with his transformed biology. But it was the sanctuary of unity that had changed them most profoundly, merging their separate consciousnesses into a harmonized duality that maintained their individual perspectives while allowing them to function as a single awareness when needed. Through this final transformation, the third key had manifested, not as a physical artifact, but as a resonant pattern generated by their unified consciousness. Now, as the Phantom approached the cradle itself, they stood side by side in the cockpit, the two physical keys orbiting around them while the third, intangible but equally real, pulsed between them in patterns only they could perceive. The Shadower fleet has entered the inner network, Juno reported, her augmented eyes tracking multiple sensor readings simultaneously. 5 capital ships and at least a dozen smaller vessels. They've deployed some kind of quantum detection grid. They'll find us soon. They already know where we're going, Tristan said, his voice carrying harmonic undertones that hadn't existed before his transformation. They'll converge on the cradle. Through the view screen, their destination came into view, emerging from the nebula's swirling gases like a dream made manifest. Unlike the geometric precision of the sanctuaries, the cradle possessed an organic quality, a structure that seemed to have grown rather than been constructed, its surfaces flowing in curves that suggested life itself. It appeared simultaneously vast and intimate, its scale shifting with perception in ways that defied conventional measurement. Colors played across its surface, not reflected light, but emanations from within, pulsing in patterns that spoke of conscious intent. "It's beautiful," Leora whispered, momentarily forgetting her medical scanner as she stared at the impossible structure. "It's alive," Nyx clarified, her transformed features glowing with anticipation. "Not in the biological sense we understand, but conscious, awakening further with our approach." The 3 keys resonated in synchronized patterns, projecting navigational data that guided the Phantom toward an aperture that formed in the cradle's outer layer. The opening resembled the iris of an eye, dilating smoothly to admit them into the structure's interior. The shadowers are accelerating, Juno warned as she guided the ship toward the entrance. Their lead vessels will be in weapons range within minutes. Once we're inside, the cradle will protect itself, Nyx assured her, though tension remained evident in the fluctuating luminescence of her features. But we must complete our connection with its systems before they attempt to force entry. The Phantom slipped through the iris-like aperture, which closed behind them with organic fluidity. Inside, they found not the expected docking bay but a space that defied categorization, an environment that seemed to exist at the boundary between physical and non-physical reality. The ship settled into a cradle of energy that supported it more gently than any mechanical system could have managed. Systems powered down automatically, leaving only basic life support operational. The cradle is interfacing directly with the ship, Juno reported, her augmented eyes widening at the data flowing across her displays. It's improving the design, optimizing systems I spent years developing in seconds. The architect's technology operates on principles your research was approaching, Nyx explained. The cradle recognizes the compatibility and refines it toward its full potential. A pathway of luminescent energy formed beyond the airlock, extending into the depths of the structure, an invitation they could not refuse, despite the urgency of their situation. I should stay with the ship, Juno decided. These upgrades, they're revolutionary. If something goes wrong, I need to be here to understand and adapt. Leora stepped forward, medical scanner in hand. I'm coming with you, she said firmly. Whatever happens at the heart of this structure, it will have physiological effects. I need to monitor the process. Tristan exchanged a glance with Nyx, an entire conversation passing between them in an instant through their unified consciousness. They had journeyed too far together to separate now, no matter what awaited. Stay close, he told Leora. What we're about to experience, there's no precedent for it in medical science. As they stepped from the Phantom onto the luminescent pathway, the keys adjusted their configuration, the physical artifacts positioning themselves before and behind the trio, while the third key, the pattern generated by Tristan and Nyx's unified consciousness, enveloped them in a field of protective resonance. The cradle guided them deeper into its structure, the environment shifting around them in ways that challenged conventional perception. Spaces expanded and contracted, geometries rearranged themselves, and boundaries between matter and energy blurred until the distinction seemed meaningless. Yet through it all, they walked with certainty, their transformed awareness allowing them to navigate realities that would have been incomprehensible to their former selves. The resonance between Tristan and Nyx stabilized the experience, creating a framework of understanding that extended to include Leora and its protective influence. My instruments can't make sense of these readings, the doctor admitted, staring at her scanner in fascination and frustration. It's as if fundamental physical constants are in flux around us. They are, Nyx confirmed. The cradle exists partially outside conventional space-time. The architects designed it as a nexus point between realities, a place where evolution could transcend the limitations of any single universe. The pathway led them to the cradle's heart, a chamber of breathtaking beauty and complexity. At its center floated what appeared to be a singularity, but unlike the destructive black holes known to science, this point of infinite density radiated life and consciousness. Around it orbited structures of crystalline energy that reconfigured themselves in patterns of mathematical perfection. The architect's consciousness, Nyx whispered, her voice filled with reverence. Not their bodies, they transcended physical form, but the essence of their understanding, preserved across eons to guide those who would follow. The keys responded to the central singularity, their resonance patterns shifting to align with its emanations. The physical artifacts accelerated in their orbit around Tristan and Nyx, while the third key, the pattern generated by their unified consciousness, expanded to encompass the entire chamber. Welcome, children of our design, came a thought that originated from everywhere and nowhere simultaneously. The communication wasn't in language as they understood it, but in concepts that unfolded directly within their consciousness, richer, deeper, and more precise than words could ever be. Through their connection with the architect's preserved essence, they perceived the full scope of the grand design that had guided evolution across the galaxy for millions of years. They saw how the architects had recognized the limitations of their own advancement, how a single species, no matter how advanced, could only perceive reality through the lens of their unique evolution. True transcendence, they had realized, required the harmonization of diverse perspectives, different species bringing their unique strengths and perceptions together to create something greater than any could achieve alone. And so they had seeded the galaxy with potential, guiding the evolution of multiple species along complementary paths, creating the conditions for eventual convergence. Humans with their adaptability and intuitive leaps of understanding. Stellari with their pattern recognition and harmonizing consciousness. Dozens of other species, each with their own gifts, their own essential perspective on reality. The cradle was not merely a repository of knowledge or technology, it was the culmination of this design, a nexus point where these diverse consciousnesses could merge their understanding while maintaining their unique perspectives, creating a tapestry of awareness that could perceive and interact with the multiverse in its full complexity. The time of convergence approaches, the architect's consciousness conveyed. You are the first to achieve the necessary harmony, but not the last. Others will follow, each bringing new perspectives to the emerging awareness. Images flowed through their minds, future possibilities where representatives of different species came together in partnerships similar to their own, each pairing generating new facets of the evolving cosmic consciousness. Not a hive mind that subsumed individuality, but a symphony where each distinct voice contributed to a greater harmony. The threat approaches came a new communication, shifting their attention to more immediate concerns. Through their connection with the cradle, they perceived the shadow or fleet surrounding the structure, weapons charging as they prepared to force entry. The leading vessel had deployed a device that disrupted the dimensional boundaries protecting the cradle, crude but effective technology reverse-engineered from architect relics. They misunderstand, the architect's consciousness conveyed. They seek dominance where we design partnership. They would twist evolution toward control rather than harmony. They'll destroy everything if they gain access to the cradle's power, Nyx said aloud, her words unnecessary for Tristan but helpful for Leora to follow their silent communion. Can we stop them? Tristan asked, directing the question both to Nyx and to the architect's consciousness. The answer came not in words but in a surge of understanding. The cradle possessed defenses, but activating them required a fully harmonized consciousness interfacing with its systems. The very connection Tristan and Nyx had developed through their journey had prepared them for precisely this role. Will you serve as our guardians? The architects asked. Not through destruction, but through transformation? The question resonated through their unified consciousness, touching on deeper truths than mere tactical considerations. The architects weren't asking them to destroy the Shadowers, but to help guide them back toward the harmony they had rejected, a task that would require them to remain connected to the cradle indefinitely, becoming part of its systems while maintaining their individual awareness. It meant leaving behind their former lives, their separate identities, to become something new, custodians of evolution itself, guiding the convergence the architects had designed toward its ultimate fulfillment. Tristan and Nyx communed in silence, their unified consciousness examining the choice from every angle. Through their bond flowed not just thoughts but emotions, the deep connection they had formed, the love that had grown between them transcending simple attraction to become something as fundamental as the forces that bound atoms together. Yes, they answered as one, the decision feeling not like sacrifice but like destiny fulfilled. The chamber responded to their acceptance, the crystalline structures rearranging themselves to create interfaces designed for their transformed physiology. The keys accelerated in their complex orbit, their resonance patterns synchronizing with the central singularity. Wait, Leora protested, finally understanding what was happening. You'll be leaving everything behind, everyone. Tristan turned to her, his transformed features gentle with compassion. Not leaving, Leora. Becoming. What waits for us isn't an ending but a beginning. You'll tell our story, Nyx added, her cosmic eyes filled with certainty. You and Juno will return to your people, helping them understand what evolution truly means, not conquest or technological dominance, but harmony between diverse consciousnesses. Before Leora could respond further, the chamber shuddered as the Shadow's disruption device breached the cradle's outer defenses. Alarms sounded, not conventional signals, but patterns of energy that conveyed urgent warning through every molecule of the structure. We need to act now, Tristan said, turning back to the central interface. He and Nyx moved in perfect synchrony, their bodies flowing into position on opposite sides of the singularity. The physical keys orbited between them, while the third key, the resonance pattern of their unified consciousness, expanded to connect them with the cradle's systems. As they interfaced with the architect's technology, their awareness expanded exponentially, encompassing the entire structure and extending beyond to perceive the Shadower fleet in perfect detail. They saw not just the ships and weapons but the beings controlling them, Stellari who had chosen a path of dominance, driven by fear of extinction, by the desire to control their destiny rather than share in cosmic partnership. Understanding brought compassion rather than anger. Through the Cradle's systems, they reached out not with destructive force, but with transformative energy, patterns of resonance that disrupted the Shadowers' weapons while leaving their vessels intact. We offer another way. They communicated directly to the Shadower consciousness. Not dominance, but partnership. Not control, but harmony. The response was predictable: resistance, anger, attempted counterattacks. But with each exchange, subtle changes occurred in the Shadowers' neural patterns as the resonance influenced their perception, creating openings for new understanding. This was the Architect's true defense, not destruction but transformation, a patient guidance that could, given time, lead even the most resistant consciousness toward harmony. It would not be quick or easy, but across the vast timescales the Architects operated within, it was inevitable. As Tristan and Nyx settled deeper into their role as guardians, their physical forms began to change, not dissolving but evolving further, becoming more energy than matter, more pattern than particle. The boundary between them blurred until they existed as two distinct patterns within a single unified field of consciousness, separate yet inseparable, individual yet harmonized. Leora watched in wonder and heartache as her friends transformed before her eyes, becoming something beyond human or Stellari, the first embodiment of the cosmic consciousness the Architects had designed, the seed from which a new order of existence would grow. Returned to the ship, they communicated to her gently. Tell our story. Prepare the way for others who will follow the path we have opened. Will I ever see you again? She asked, tears flowing freely down her face. We will always be here, came their unified response. And as others achieve harmony, as the convergence spreads, we will be everywhere. This is not an ending, Leora. It is the beginning of everything. The chamber began to reconfigure around them, the crystalline structures forming a protective cocoon that would shield their transforming consciousness during the sensitive early phases of integration with the Cradle's systems. A pathway of light appeared, guiding Leora back toward the Phantom. With a final look at what her friends were becoming, she turned and followed the path, her medical scanner still recording data that would take scientists generations to fully comprehend. Aboard the Phantom, Juno's augmented eyes widened as she watched the Cradle's surface come alive with patterns of light that flowed like liquid mathematics across its organic structure. The Shadower fleet, weapons disabled by unknown means, hung in disarray around the massive artifact. When Leora returned alone, tears still marking her face, Juno understood without being told that Tristan and Nyx would not be returning, at least, not in the forms they had known. They've become part of it, haven't they? She asked softly. Leora nodded, unable to find words adequate to describe what she had witnessed. Instead, she handed Juno her medical scanner, letting the data speak for itself. Incredible, the engineer whispered as she reviewed the readings. They've transcended conventional physical law. The quantum patterns here, they shouldn't be possible. They said to tell their story, Leora finally managed. To prepare the way for others. Juno's attention was drawn back to the view screen, where the Cradle now pulsed with new energy patterns that spoke of conscious intent, of purpose fulfilled and beginning anew. The Shadower fleet was slowly dispersing, their ships moving away from the structure as if in a daze. What happened to the Shadowers? She asked. Transformation, not destruction, Leora replied, echoing what she had witnessed. They said it would take time, but even the most resistant consciousness can eventually be guided toward harmony. The Phantom systems hummed to life around them, interfaces displaying a course back through the nebula, away from the Cradle. The ship had been subtly but profoundly changed by its time within the structure, enhanced in ways that would take Juno years to fully understand. They want us to leave? She asked, noting the automated preparations for departure. To carry the message, Leora confirmed. This was never meant to be the end of the journey, but the beginning. What they've become, it's the first step towards something vast, something that will eventually encompass all sentient life willing to join in harmony. As the Phantom disengaged from its energy cradle and moved toward the iris-like aperture that had reopened to permit their departure, both women felt a presence in their minds, gentle, familiar yet transformed. Vast beyond comprehension yet intimately connected to them through the bonds of friendship and shared experience. Safe journey, came the thought, resonating directly in their consciousness. Until we meet again, in this form or another. The phantom emerged from the cradle into open space, the nebulous swirling gases parting before them as if guided by conscious intent. Behind them, the impossible structure pulsed with new patterns of light and energy, the first visible signs of the transformation occurring within as Tristan and Nyx integrated fully with the architect's systems, becoming the guardians and guides of cosmic evolution. As they navigated away from the nebula, setting course for Alliance space, Juno and Leora reflected on all they had witnessed, a journey that had begun with a wounded alien seeking refuge and culminated in the fulfillment of a design set in motion millions of years before. What do we tell them? Juno wondered aloud. The Alliance, the scientific community, how do we explain any of this? Leora considered the question carefully, knowing that their account would shape humanity's approach to the cosmic convergence the architects had designed. We tell them the truth, she decided. That evolution isn't a solitary journey but a shared one. That the next step isn't technological dominance or biological superiority, but harmony between diverse consciousnesses. And about Tristan and Nyx? Juno asked softly. A smile touched Leora's lips, sad yet hopeful. We tell them that love transcends species, transcends form itself, that what began as connection between two beings became the seed of something that will eventually transform the cosmos. The phantom accelerated away from the nebula, carrying with it a message that would reshape humanity's understanding of their place in the universe. Behind them, the cradle continued its ancient vigil, now awakened to its full purpose by the harmonized consciousness it had gained. Within its heart, Tristan and Nyx existed in a state beyond conventional understanding, separate yet unified, their individual perspectives enriching a shared consciousness that had become the first embodiment of the architect's vision. Through them, the pattern had been established that others would eventually follow, diverse pairs and groups of compatible consciousnesses joining in harmony while maintaining their unique perspectives. And as their awareness expanded further, touching stars and planets across the galaxy, they felt the resonance of other potential pairings, humans and Stellari, yes, but also countless other species, each with their own gifts to bring to the emerging cosmic symphony. The journey they had begun would continue for millennia, guiding evolution not toward a single dominant species but toward a harmonized diversity that could perceive and interact with the multiverse in its full complexity. What they had become was both ending and beginning, culmination and genesis, a promise of evolution fulfilled and a new path opening before all sentient life willing to walk it. In time, others would join them in the cradle, adding new dimensions to the emerging cosmic consciousness. And eventually, when enough harmonized awareness had accumulated, the final phase of the architect's design would activate, a transformation that would allow consciousness itself to transcend the limitations of physical reality entirely, evolving into a state as far beyond their current existence as they now were beyond their original forms. But that was a story for another eon, another phase of the cosmic dance the architects had set in motion. For now, Tristan and Nyx existed in perfect harmony, their love having transcended physical form to become something eternal. A resonance pattern in the very fabric of the cosmos, echoing across stars and galaxies like music that would never end. And in that harmony, they found not the loss of self they might once have feared, but its ultimate fulfillment, individual perspectives enriching a shared consciousness, separate melodies combining to create a symphony greater than either could have composed alone. The architect's promise had been fulfilled. Evolution continued. And throughout the vast reaches of space, consciousness called to consciousness, seeking the connections that would carry all sentient life forward into a future limited only by imagination itself.